Welcome to Dr Joe Unplugged. This podcast contains general information and is not in any way medical advice. What do we make of serotonin? A lot of people will be familiar with the SSRI medications. They're an antidepressant. SSRI standing for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. The first of these medications was developed in the 1980s. It's fluoxetine. The trade name is Prozac, or there are a lot of other names for it now. And it pretty much revolutionised the treatment of depressive disorders. When I was in med school, the primary medication class were called tricyclic antidepressants. And we were told that they should really be used very judiciously. They should only be prescribed in what was then called major or endogenous depression. And they had really potentially life-threatening side effects. If people overdosed or took too much, it could cause major problems with the heart. So to that extent, the word was very strongly used with extreme caution and only where necessary, which you would think is, should be applied to all medications, but doesn't always happen. So the advent of the SSRIs, we now have, or had, and still have, a medication which is much safer to use. And that's really good. That really is a good thing. But like a lot in medicine, once you scratch beneath the surface, the story becomes a little bit different. And in the 1960s, there were a number of theories around depression, a number of theories. And similar to the cholesterol heart hypothesis, eventually one theory gains traction and the others fall away. And then we forget to ask, well, why do we believe this? So a study published in Nature magazine, we'll put the link down below, the serotonin theory of depression, a systematic umbrella review of the evidence. And I'll just quote a little bit from the abstract here. The serotonin hypothesis of depression is still influential. We've aimed to synthesize and evaluate evidence on whether depression is associated with lower serotonin concentration or activity. So essentially what they're doing is saying, well, we work on the basis that depression is caused by this chemical imbalance in the brain. There's not enough serotonin. You block its reuptake, so there's more floating around, and that's how you treat depression. And that's the basis of these medications. The findings were not possibly what everybody would like to hear. The main areas of serotonin research provide no consistent evidence of there being an association between serotonin and depression, and no support for the hypothesis that depression is caused by lower serotonin activity or concentrations. Some evidence was consistent with the possibility that long-term antidepressant use reduces serotonin concentration. So this is another one of these single experiments that can prove me wrong. Immediately, people are going to say, and for anybody who's taking medications, do not stop without discussing with your doctor, and we'll go into the reasons why in a little bit. There's a lot in medicine where it's just taken as read, and we forget to ask, why do we believe this? So the concept of the chemical imbalance has never been proven. The concept of serotonin lack or loss or insufficient amounts, perhaps the better one, has been assumed but never been shown. And this work now basically says that their evidence isn't there to support it. Now, people will also say these medications work. And that's true. And in severe depression, they do work. Now, exactly why might not be for the reasons that we first think. But in mild and moderate depression, they are no better than placebo. When published data was looked at for a particular medication when it came to market, showed 98% improvement compared to placebo. When unpublished data, and this was work done in the late 2000s, when unpublished data was added to the published data, that rate fell to 50%. So again, no better than placebo. People often do feel better, and they end up feeling better because they're taking the tablet rather than because of what the tablet is doing. There's another issue that is starting to get a bit more traction, and in the UK in particular, they're looking at the issue of people coming off SSRI medications. And they are non-addictive, and we're told that they don't have withdrawal symptoms, but there are people who do have problems coming off them. And David Healy, who's an Irish psychiatrist, has a website, rxisk.org, and a lot of people have shared their stories on that website about the difficulties they have in coming off these medications. Peter Breggin, an American psychiatrist, has also written and given to understand has appeared in a number of court cases as a plaintiff witness in some of these issues. So ultimately, what is the solution? And there's never a one-size-fits-all. But I suppose we've had a tendency to see a pill as the solution. We've also had a tendency to lower the threshold at which normal human emotion becomes a medical condition. So, sadness is a normal human emotion. It's not an abnormality. Same with grief. We may be upset for a variety of reasons. We may be stressed for a variety of reasons. That we may have some symptoms or some depressive symptoms doesn't necessarily equate with having a condition of depression. But the two have become conflated, and the ability to use medications that are safe, and I really do want to emphasise that, and having side effects is not the same as not being safe, has made it quite easy to provide a pill. And the figures suggest that somewhere between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 people may be treated with one of these medications in Australia and the USA. And when you look at international data, it's also quite high. Is that wrong? No, I'm not going to say it's wrong. But if in mild and moderate depression it is no better than placebo, then is it really the best way to go? And again, this is a discussion everybody should be having with their doctor. There are a lot of other ways that one can look to treat particularly mild and moderate depression, and that includes regular exercise, both cardiovascular and resistance training. Change of diet. There's been work that shows that going from a diet that's high in processed sugary foods to a more Mediterranean type of diet does correlate with improvements in mood and reduction in depressive symptoms. Stress management, meditation, Tai Chi, yoga, mindfulness, there's a long list. Also very beneficial. Getting enough sleep is also beneficial. Even something as simple as staying hydrated and spending some time in nature can all be beneficial. Now, are these treatments? They're not going to necessarily be classed as treatments, although exercise, could be. But these are all very simple, non-pharmaceutical measures that we can take to help our mood in the normal course of events, and also can be beneficial if one is feeling some depressive symptoms. Again, it's important to go and see your doctor if you have concerns. There's also CBT or cognitive behavioural therapy. There are a lot of apps that can be used. One can talk to a psychologist, a life coach, or a counsellor. So there's a lot of options aside from medication. So if there is a take-home message in all of this, and I think there are two. Number one is that we need to be more questioning of what we're doing, and if the whole basis of use of a class of medications doesn't actually have any evidence to support it, then we really need to be revisiting that. And number two is that we don't want to be always looking for the answer to be in a pill. There is a role for medications in this society. Absolutely there is a role. But you can have too much of a good thing, and we shouldn't see a pill as the default option. Thanks for listening to Dr. Joe Unplugged. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share. You can also follow it on all the socials. There'll be new content uploaded each week.